A couple newly married is unexpectedly faced with the responsibility of raising a paralyzed child and wonders if they are prepared for the task. One day, while their 6-month-old baby is asleep, their puppy Max does something so extraordinary that it moves them to tears, leaving them to call it a miracle. The doorbell rang out, shattering the tranquility of their afternoon with its insistent urgency. Ethan, absorbed in his coding, barely noticed the sound at first. Meanwhile, his wife Lily, freshly off her shift as a devoted nurse and looking forward to the comfort of their cozy new home on Cedar Lane, had no idea of the unfolding commotion. After a few more persistent rings, Ethan reluctantly dragged himself away from his desk. As he opened the door, the sight before him shattered his usual rhythm. A distressed young woman stood on the doorstep, holding a swaddled baby tightly in her arms. Her disheveled appearance and the intense urgency in her eyes left no doubt that their orderly, peaceful life was about to be thrown into chaos. Ethan was stunned. He had no idea who this woman was or why she had come to their door. She looked exhausted, like she hadn't eaten or slept in days. He assumed she needed help, but the words that left her mouth left him speechless. "Please," she begged, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I can't take care of him anymore. He's yours now." Ethan stood frozen, trying to process the woman's words. The baby, a tiny, fragile thing wrapped in a faded blue blanket, let out a soft coo, unaware of the storm swirling around him. Before Ethan could react, the woman suddenly placed the baby into his arms, handed him a crumpled envelope, and turned away without saying another word. It all happened so fast that Ethan barely had time to breathe. He stood frozen, the baby warm and fragile in his arms, while the woman, like a ghost, vanished into the cold air. He looked down at the tiny boy, his heart pounding, 1,000 questions screaming in his mind, but silence answered them all. "Wait!" Ethan called out, his voice shaking, but it was too late. The woman turned a corner and vanished from sight. He thought about chasing after her, but how could he do that while holding a baby? His heart was pounding. He looked down at the infant, still sleeping peacefully, completely unaware of the weight his tiny presence had just dropped on their lives. Moments later, Lily pulled into the driveway, tired from her shift and looking forward to a quiet evening. As she approached the porch, her eyes widened. "Ethany? Who is that?" she asked, her voice uncertain. Her mind went to strange places. Had Ethan been hiding something? Was this his child? But the thought disappeared as quickly as it came. She knew her husband. There had to be an explanation. Without saying a word, Ethan handed her the letter. They stood side by side as Lily carefully unfolded the paper and began to read. With each line, their expressions grew more serious. The woman explained that she couldn't care for the child anymore. He had been born paralyzed from the waist down. She had no family. The baby's father had left when he learned of the disability. And now, he was theirs. Ethan and Lily sat silently on the living room couch, the letter lying open on the coffee table in front of them. The baby, now cradled gently in Lily's arms, slept soundly as if he had always belonged there. Neither of them spoke at first. The weight of the moment hung in the air like a heavy fog. They kept rereading the letter as if hoping the words would change. The woman, her name was never mentioned, had poured her heart onto that page. She explained how she had seen Lily at the hospital during delivery and remembered her kindness. That's why she'd chosen them, because she believed they could give the baby, whom she called Noah, the life she couldn't. Lily's heart broke as she read. She had seen so many women struggling during childbirth, but never imagined someone would later show up at her doorstep like this. She looked down at the baby, his tiny fingers curled into his blanket, his chest rising and falling in soft breaths. "We can't just give him away," Lily finally whispered. Ethan nodded slowly. "I know. I don't think I could live with myself if we did. It wasn't part of the plan. It wasn't how they imagined starting a family. But plans had a way of changing, and this child, abandoned, innocent, and in need, had found his way into their arms for a reason. That night, without saying it aloud, they both made the same decision. They would raise Noah as their own. The next morning, Lily called her supervisor at the hospital and asked for an emergency leave of absence. She explained just enough, saying she had to care for an infant, and thankfully the hospital was understanding. She had a few unused vacation days, and under the circumstances, they agreed to put her on temporary family leave. At home, she and Ethan began adjusting to life as new parents, overnight and without warning. There were diaper changes, midnight cries, formula spills, and countless moments of uncertainty. But through the chaos, there was something else, something stronger, a connection. Noah responded to Lily's voice like he'd known her forever. He nestled into Ethan's chest when held, as though his little body understood that he was finally safe. Despite their exhaustion, the bond was forming, deep, real, and undeniable. Just as they were beginning to find a shaky rhythm, life surprised them again. It was a chilly morning, a few days after Noah arrived. Lily had just stepped outside to take out the trash when she spotted something near the back fence. A small, scruffy puppy, soaked from dew and shivering from the cold, was curled up in the corner of their yard. Lily's heart melted instantly. She rushed over, scooping the little thing into her arms. The pup was thin, clearly malnourished, with fur matted and eyes wide with fear. But even then, he didn't resist her touch. He just leaned in, as if he too had finally found safety. When Ethan saw her walk in with the dog in her arms, he paused mid-step. "Lil, really? A baby and a puppy?" But Lily's look said it all. They took the pup to the vet that afternoon. The vet confirmed he was a German Shepherd mix, likely just a few months old. No collar, no microchip, and aside from a mild respiratory infection, he was in good health. They named him Max. At first, Max was skittish, especially around Ethan. He clung to Lily like she was his lifeline and would whimper whenever she stepped out of the room. Most worryingly, Max showed a kind of unease whenever Lily tended to Noah, pacing, whining, and watching anxiously. Ethan raised concerns. "We can't have a dog that's jealous of a baby, Lil. What if he snaps?" But Lily had faith in Max. She saw something in him. Something broken, yes, but something worth saving. And maybe, just maybe, she thought, Max and Noah were more alike than anyone could see. After a few days filled with cautious interactions and awkward silences, Ethan and Max slowly began to understand each other. It started during their early morning walks, short ones just around the block. At first, Max would pull at the leash, ears flat and tail tucked. But Ethan, patient and gentle, spoke to him like he would a child. "It's okay, buddy. I'm not the enemy." And somehow Max began to believe him. The tension between them softened. Max started wagging his tail when Ethan walked into the room. He'd even lay by his feet while Ethan worked from home, quietly keeping him company. It was a fragile truce, but it was real. Inside the home, life settled into a new, sometimes chaotic, rhythm. Lily balanced feedings, laundry, and doctor appointments with impressive grace. She seemed to know exactly what Noah needed, even before he cried. Ethan did his best to support her, taking night shifts, preparing bottles, and learning how to swaddle with surprising skill. Noah, in return, gave them something priceless: his smile. It came slowly at first, just tiny twitches of his mouth, but as the days passed, they turned into full, gummy grins. Especially when Max was near. The pup would poke his nose into Noah's crib, and the baby would giggle, soft and pure. Max, once wary and restless, seemed to realize that Noah wasn't a threat. He was someone to protect. Their home was far from perfect. There were sleepless nights, spit-up stained shirts, and moments of doubt, but it was theirs. And between the diaper changes and barking fits, love bloomed in every corner of that little house on Cedar Lane. One evening, after an especially long and exhausting day, Lily noticed something off. Noah felt warmer than usual. At first she thought it was just the blanket or a lingering bit of fussiness from the day, but when his temperature continued to rise and his cries grew weaker, panic set in. Without hesitation, Ethan and Lily rushed him to the emergency room. Lily held Noah tightly in the back seat, whispering softly, trying to soothe him as tears welled in her eyes. Ethan gripped the steering wheel, jaw clenched, praying silently that whatever this was, it wouldn't be worse than what they already knew. Hours passed in the sterile brightness of the hospital. Nurses moved quickly, and doctors asked questions Lily struggled to answer through her worry. Ethan stayed by her side the entire time, never letting go of her hand. Finally, a pediatric neurologist entered the waiting room, holding a folder and wearing a guarded but gentle smile. He sat down and explained everything carefully. After a series of tests, they had discovered that Noah's paralysis was the result of a rare but potentially reversible condition. It appeared that his spinal cord hadn't been permanently damaged. Instead, something about his early development had caused temporary neurological issues. There was a chance, maybe not a promise, but a real medical chance, that Noah could regain movement. Lily gasped, covering her mouth with trembling hands. Ethan leaned forward, unable to speak. The doctor made no promises, but he did offer hope. He scheduled follow-up appointments and gave them detailed care instructions to support Noah's progress. Most importantly, he encouraged them to stay positive. As they drove home that night, Noah asleep in Lily's arms, neither of them said much, but they didn't need to. Hope had returned, quiet, fragile, and glowing. It had been a long, draining week. Between Noah's medications, follow-up appointments, and adjusting his physical therapy routine, both Ethan and Lily were running on empty. That evening, Lily needed to run out for groceries and a quick prescription pickup. Ethan insisted she take a break, even if it was just for an hour. "We'll be fine," he smiled, trying to hide the fatigue in his own eyes. With Noah fed and asleep and Max curled at his feet, Ethan dozed off on the living room couch. The baby monitor crackled faintly on the coffee table beside him, soft static, like a whisper in the background. Outside, the wind rustled through the trees. Inside, everything was still. Until a faint thud broke the silence. Max's ears perked up instantly. He stood, alert and tense. Then he heard it again, another soft noise, from Noah's room. Without hesitation, Max bolted down the hallway. Inside the nursery, the sight was terrifying. Noah, somehow, had slipped through the narrow slats of the crib. His upper body dangled off the edge of the mattress, his tiny head tilted downward toward the hardwood floor. Because of his paralysis, he couldn't push himself back up or even adjust his position. His head was barely holding his weight, and if he fell, the consequences could be fatal. Max didn't bark. He didn't panic. He moved. With instinct sharper than any training could provide, Max wedged his body beneath Noah's dangling torso and nudged him gently upward with his snout, again and again, until, with one final push, Noah's body rolled safely back into the crib. That's when Ethan burst through the door, startled by the sudden absence of Max from the living room and woken by the strange silence. What he saw stopped him cold. Noah, now safe in the crib, Max standing guard beside him, and a quiet, loyal gaze that said everything. "I've got him." Tears welled in Ethan's eyes. He dropped to his knees, pulled Max into his arms, and whispered, "Thank you. Thank you." That night, something shifted. Max wasn't just a rescue dog anymore. He was family. Days turned into weeks, and little by little, Noah began to change. At first it was subtle, a twitch of a toe, then a slight movement in his ankle. The physical therapist called it promising, but to Ethan and Lily, it felt like witnessing a miracle unfold right before their eyes. They clung to every small sign, celebrating each one like a major victory. Lily would tear up when Noah kicked softly during exercises. Ethan would beam with pride when Noah managed to hold his head higher than before. Progress was slow, but it was real. And through it all, Max never left his side. The bond between the pup and the boy had become something almost sacred. Max would lie next to Noah during therapy sessions, sometimes resting his head gently on the baby's legs. He would bring over toys, Noah's and his own, and nudge them toward him as if encouraging him to reach out. Noah, now more alert and expressive, responded in kind. He laughed more. He babbled when Max was near, reaching for his fur and gripping tightly with tiny fingers. The once timid pup now seemed more like a guardian angel in fur. One sunny afternoon, Ethan set up a picnic blanket in their small backyard. Lily sat with Noah in her lap, and Max playfully ran circles around them. Then it happened. Noah pushed up with his arms, shifted his weight, and, assisted by Lily's guiding hands, rose to a sitting position completely on his own. His face lit up, and so did theirs. Ethan caught it all on camera, Max trotting over and licking Noah's cheek, Noah giggling uncontrollably, Lily laughing through her tears. That moment, the sunlight, the laughter, the healing, was everything they had prayed for. Hope didn't just live in their home anymore, it thrived. A few days after that sunny afternoon, the doorbell rang again. Max was the first to react, ears perked, tail wagging as he ran toward the front door. Noah, now a rambunctious toddler, crawled behind him, giggling with every bounce. Ethan opened the door, and the color drained from his face. Standing there was a woman he hadn't seen since that unforgettable day. It was her, Noah's birth mother. Lily appeared behind Ethan, eyes wide. For a moment, no one spoke. But the woman, her name was Hannah, didn't step inside. She simply handed Ethan an envelope, her eyes misty but calm. "I'm not here to take him," she said softly. "I just came to say goodbye, properly." Inside the envelope was a letter and final legal documents relinquishing all parental rights. In her letter, Hannah explained that she'd received help, gone through therapy, and was now engaged to someone who had supported her healing. She expressed gratitude and said she trusted them to tell Noah about her someday, if and when they chose to. Lily read the letter in silence, her fingers trembling as she reached the final lines. Her heart was torn between relief and something else. Grief, maybe. Not for herself, but for the kind of pain only another mother could recognize. Pain that never truly leaves, it just changes shape. When Hannah turned to leave, Lily whispered, "Thank you for trusting us." Later that evening, Lily sat quietly beside Ethan, her hand resting on her stomach. She smiled, looked at him, and said softly, "I'm 8 weeks pregnant." Ethan's eyes widened and then filled with tears. They had been through heartbreak, chaos, and uncertainty, but here they were, stronger, closer, and now complete. With Max curled at their feet and Noah's laughter filling the room, Ethan rested a hand gently on Lily's growing belly. The road ahead was still uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, they weren't afraid of what came next. They had each other, and that was their miracle.